So after going through two different sets of tires in a very short period of time, the car was taken in for wheel alignment, but it has bad ball joints on it, on the lower control arm and the tie rods. So obviously they could not do a wheel alignment on it. In this video, we're going to focus on changing the outer tie rod. I came in here with intentions of also doing the inner tie rod, but once I took these things apart, I realized that the inner tie rods are still good on this vehicle. So we're going to leave that alone for now. I also did go ahead and change the lower control arms, but that's in a separate video. So if you're interested in that, go check out my channel, and I'll also include a link to it in the description. So you can see how this outer tie rod is putting up a fight. The impact gun really did help, but if it's giving you a hard time, you might want to switch over to a breaker bar. It's just going to take a little bit longer. Here I'm using a ball joint separator. If you don't have one, you could go to your local auto parts store and they rent them out for free. But the easiest thing to do is just hit it right here on the knuckle with the biggest hammer that you have, and eventually it should come out. Here I am testing the inner tie rod, which I was actually very surprised to see that it holds its own weight. As you can see, I let it go and it doesn't fall down. There's no play back and forth. So obviously the inner tie rod is still good and there's no need to replace it at this point. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the ball joint back into the knuckle. Just hold it there loosely. Reason for that is so I could loosen the jam nut on the outer tie rod. Now obviously I could have gone ahead and done this step first, but it doesn't really matter to me, so that's why I did it like this. Now these jam nuts could either be on there really tight, or they're just rusted in place, or a combination of both. So that's why I'm using a hammer right here to just kind of knock my wrench back to get it loose. So to minimize how far off you throw your alignment, after I loosen the jam nut, I just like to leave it in place and then loosen the tie rod. And what you can do is count how many times you spin the tie rod. So I think I got about 13 and a half or maybe 14 turns off. And obviously when you're going to go ahead and put the new tie rod on, you count the same amount of turns and it should meet right up with the jam nut on where you left it. And here I am comparing the new tie rod to the old one. They should be the same length. Try not to over tighten the zerk fitting. It's only held on by a few threads, so it's not that difficult to strip it. And I always think it's much easier to just add the grease while the part is off the car, because sometimes when you put them on the car, you no longer have access to the zerk fitting. If I had a flexible hose at the end of my grease gun, it wouldn't be a problem, but I can't seem to find it. So I like to grease any part that I could before I even put it on the car. Now when you're ready to tighten up the jam nut, don't overdo it, because remember, when you take it in for a wheel alignment, the technician has to be able to loosen the jam nut in order to do the wheel alignment. So just get it nice and snug, but don't do anything overkill. And of course, do not forget about your cotter pin. And that's pretty much it for changing your outer tie rods. Now you could also go ahead and apply this method to the other side of the car because it's exactly the same. If you liked the video and it helped you, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.